Or maybe it is. I don't. You didn't still start.
Hi, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. We're going to open up our planning board meeting for today, May 11th, and we'll begin with a quick roll call, starting over there on my left.
Matt Allison, I'm here.
Kenneth Chenis.
Damon McQuaid.
Joanna Bellata.
Nathan Lockwood. All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we dive into our rather lengthy agenda tonight, is there any public comment on topics that are not on the agenda that anyone would like to bring up? Okay, seeing no public comment at the moment, we're going to go to our first item, which is regarding 50 Elmwood Road, and it is a request for a lot release. And this is the request letter and board endorsed covenant that was scanned to the members. All right.
Thank you.
So I'm going to take questions from the board members in just a moment. First, I'd like to ask Adam if you have any comments or recommendations regarding the lot release.
Sure. I think we discussed this very briefly the last time around, and the developer has done a significant amount of work up at the site. I encourage those who were here the last time to take a ride by there and see what he's done. He's asking for 2 lots to be released tonight, and then the remainder to be released upon the posting of bond to be approved by the board. I think that the work he's done easily qualifies to cover the cost of 2 lots. There's adequate access to all the lots. The road is paved to binder course, and the work remaining is substantial to complete the road, but not so much that 7 lots wouldn't be reasonable surety up until the point he posts the bond.
Thank you very much, Adam. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, I agree. I took the opportunity to drive through the site, and it does look good and in good, clean order, and the basins are starting to take seed, so that's good.
Yeah, I agree. I did the same thing. The site looks good. It looks like he's done a good job to date. So.
Also agree.
I agree. I think Mr. Crowley did a great job. Anything we asked him to do, he did. His reputation speaks for itself. I have no problem supporting it.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the release of the requested lots.
I believe the request is for lots 2 and 5.
I would move that we release lots 2 and 5.
Second.
Any discussion of the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, thank you. So, anything else in relation to this?
Yeah, you'll need
topic?
to go ahead and sign.
All right.
And while you're in the process of signing, I do have a question on the bond, and I guess this will, it's sort of a procedural question. I know how it's been done places that I've worked. Every place does it different. Does the board wish to endorse the bond amount or just the bond form? The amount is generally a technical number that's agreed upon between the town and the developer, usually with the advice of either the reviewing engineer or the town engineer, depending on how it works. So some boards say, just tell us what the number is and we'll look at the bond. Some boards actually want to look at all the work and have an input on the number. So I'm putting it to to the board as to the manner in which they'd like to proceed with that.
Again, I think you're very competent. I think Mr. Crowley, and as well as our peer review engineer, Mr. Rowe, I would know if the numbers look right or not right. I would trust your 3 instincts to tell me that, so I'm okay with the form.
Any other thoughts from the board on Adam's question? Okay, so it sounds like, based on the feedback, that the board would support, just in you're saying endorsing the bond as a whole, and we don't need to be involved in the process of
Sounds good.
determining the quantity. You will be involved in the process of doing that. Okay, excellent. All right, anything else on 50 Elmwood, Adam?
No.
All right, it's 6:35. We have a public hearing for 270 Electric Ave. So I think we will open up the public hearing of 270 Electric Ave. Thank you very much, Marjorie.
Keep us on task.
Okay, so one moment, please. All right, the Lunenburg Planning Board will hold a public hearing on May 11th, 2015, 6:35, Joseph Bellata Meeting Room, Town Hall, 17 Main Street, Lunenburg, Mass., to hear and discuss an application for development plan review under Section 8.4 of the Protective Bylaw of the Town of Lunenburg for construction and operation of a self-storage facility at 270 Electric Ave, map 93, parcel 72. Owner applicant is LTN Realty Trust, 308 Electric Avenue, Lunenburg, Mass. Materials are available for viewing at the Planning Office, 960 Mass Ave, Lunenburg, Mass. 01462. Okay, Adam, do you have any minutes, findings, or relevant report you'd like to present to the board?
Not at this time. The project is currently with a review engineer, and we have not received a report back. I expect one well prior to our next meeting, and I believe the applicant probably has a short presentation.
Okay, great. Would the applicant please come forward and make any presentation?
Okay here? So a little closer?
Dex, you need a mic, Rich.
It's fine
And-
right there if you just take the mic over.
Yeah. Dex, can you get the picture of the easel? Perfect. And Adam, I just want to say I love your in-tech minutes. I love, just so we know and can understand them. I think they're fantastic. Thank you.
That's all Marjorie. She does a wonderful job keeping everything recorded.
No, great job. Thank you. It helps us understand the process.
Good evening. My name is Richard Bursch. I currently live at 308 Electric Avenue. I own the property at 270 Electric Ave. Right now it is, my pointer works. Right now we use about this much of the space. It is currently used for open storage of bark mulch, loam, and we have 6 growing greenhouses on there and an outdoor growing bed. So currently we have an outdoor storage permit with ZBA that we have applied an application for an indoor storage permit for the use on the property. What we're looking to do is remove all the greenhouses, remove all the bark mulch, and put in a self-storage facility running along. This is Route 13 here. This is West Street along here. We have had a feasibility study done, so they've given us a layout as far as what is needed in the area for storage, and they have recommended a good amount of climate control indoor storage and then some outdoor access but garage style storage. At this point, there will be no storage on the facility that is not inside the building, so no outdoor storage whatsoever is what we're looking for. Everything will be contained inside the buildings. The 2 large buildings, Building A and Building B, are going to be climate controlled. The access for those 2 buildings is going to be in the back. There'll be no access to the building along Route 13 to be seen at all. This is all going to be green space from the edge of the pavement up to the building. The access that we've put in is right in here. The access that we chose is right, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Route 13 right in through there. There's kind of a hill crest, and then you get to the intersection at West Street and Route 13. We've chosen to put the intersection, or the entrance right here, which is right at the very peak of the hill. If you notice, I believe you have the survey plans on there and the plan that we're looking at for development. And it does show the entrance, and it should show the elevation lines that are on there. And the elevation line at the top of the hill there is 100. There's a little bit of a plateau. Everybody can see that, I think. So what that does is that allows anybody stopped in the line of traffic to pull in, or anybody at the entrance trying to pull out, vantage of sight going both ways. I know this intersection, as I've lived there 30 years, this is a really tough intersection because you can see up to the peak and that's it. So there is problems with this intersection, but where we have the entrance right at the peak, it allows perfect visibility going both ways. With me tonight is Wes Fliss from Whitman and Bingham, and they have done the study for the sight lines at that entrance point. So he does have that available if anybody would like to see it at this point. So what we've got is these two front buildings will be pitch style roof. We're looking to put as much of the water off onto the greenway area here and not have the runoff running onto the blacktop. What that does is it slows down the rainwater and the storm water going off. This will go down into a swale, into a catch basin. We have a detention pond in the back of the site here. This building, the runoff will come down around on this side into a underground retention area and then off into the catch basin. This one building is the only building at this point that's going to be draining onto the blacktop. So we're trying to limit as much of the rainwater going onto the blacktop as possible. One, to slow down the velocity of the water. Two, is a safety issue. You get water running off, especially in the wintertime, you get a lot of ice buildup. And where we will have, traffic and people in through the area, we want to try to lessen that as much as possible. These two buildings here, the rainwater will go off to the east, the west, drain down into a catch basin and out.
Is there any stormwater control in the existing greenhouses now?
There is nothing at the moment, no. It's just sheet flow. It is the ledge is very, very shallow for the whole site, so there isn't much infiltration in this area here. We do get down, 2 to 3 feet of soil before you hit the ledge on this half of the property, but down in here, the ledge is very, very shallow. We're looking right in here is going to be the main office that we're going to have for the building. The utilities for right here will come in off of 13. When they did the sewer on 13, there is a sewer stub that they put in to the property line, and it does line up right here at the entrance. So we won't have to blast or cut into Route 13 to get our sewer. The electric lines come right over here, so we'll just drop a pole, have them come in underground to the building. The water access right now, I have a 1-inch stub off of West Street right in here, which will be the water access for the office. We had a tech meeting on Tuesday and met with the Lunenburg Fire Department, and they recommended a fire hydrant be added right there. And I have checked with the Lunenburg Water District. They also recommended, as opposed to coming in off of Electric Ave, to come in off of West Street with the water main, an 8-inch main for the fire hydrant. Then it'll come up. This will be the main area here for the fire department to tie in for the pumping the sprinklers to the two buildings. Under Mass building code, these two big buildings here are about 20,000 square feet. They will require fire sprinklers. So we have met with the fire department to see where they want to have the utility rooms and how they want that set up. And their recommendation was right in here for their utility rooms for those two buildings. The other three on site are under the size, so they will not have fire sprinklers, nor will they have heat or air conditioning. Those will just be external garage units. So people will open the doors, put their items in, close the doors. Right now we have planned for these two back units to also store cars or vehicles. And under the code, again, there'll be requirement for a firewall halfway down. and that was through the building department, through Mike Savageau. Also, in talking with the fire department, this access here will be the only main public access. There will be a key-coded gate. We're planning to have the access open from 7 a.m. to about 8 p.m. We're not looking for a 24-hour access. So the gate will be permanently, or the key codes will be disabled after 8 o'clock at night. This gate down here will be for EMS only. So the fire department, the police department, and any other municipal agencies that need access for emergency purposes will have codes for both gates, but this gate will not be open to the public. So one way in, one way out. Right now the buildings are planned to be pre-manufactured steel buildings. So they cut all the pieces, ship them all, and then they're put on the sites. The foundations will be floating slabs, and then the steel buildings will be placed on top of that. We have, I don't know if I added the colors in there. We're looking for, being a graduate of Lunenburg High and the Blue Knights, we kind of like the blue color. I did have a couple examples of the color passed around.
Are all the buildings single story?
All the buildings are single story, correct? Yeah, I don't have the colors with me, but I do plan on these two buildings here, where this abutter will just see the backs of the buildings, as opposed to having the cream beige, either a moss or an olive green, something that's a more natural color. We're also planning to landscape all around the property line for all the abutters. The fronts of the buildings, we're planning on 3 or 4 facade doors, a nice 30 or 40 foot landscape bed, 3 or 4 facade doors, a 30 or 40 foot landscape bed, just to kind of break it up. We don't want to, I don't want to have doors across the entire building, but I want to have enough doors so somebody driving by will recognize that this is a storage facility. I think that about covers what we're looking to do with the site. Yes, so to answer your question, Damien, they are all single-story buildings. They are all lean-to buildings, so the roof will pitch at a quarter pitch. So these roofs pitch off to the east, these roofs pitch off to the west. So they're not flat roofs, they will be pitched roofs.
Yep.
Now, you don't want to have the snow sliding off them too quickly. You don't want to have the water coming off of them too quickly. So hence you don't want to have, a 4 or 6 foot pitch roof.
Yeah.
That's what the builder had recommended as the best way for safety, for water flow, for storm water, the quarter pitch roof. We do have, I don't have a great design with me tonight, but the office here will be windowed. We do have, I did just a quick sketch.
The purpose of Michelle today is to...
That's a rough idea of the front of the office, and then the building will continue on. No, that way there. No, the other way. No, so we have the office, facade doors, landscape bed, facade doors, landscape bed. And then the same on the other side, facade doors, landscape bed, facade doors. It's just the same thing. It's gonna look like that.
Thank you.
So, is it your assumption that the usage is going to be so low that you're not going to have to worry about the incoming and outgoing traffic simultaneously? Because I notice it's a short distance to queue up to get in, then you have a keypad entry on the opposite side of a normal traffic flow.
Yeah, the average use for a facility of this side is about 80 visits a day.
80 visits a day.
80 visits a day. I did also show the plans to Jack Rodrikins, the DPW director, and he did make reference, and I have a copy of the email he sent me. He did make reference to another project that was permitted just down the road, and he remembers from that project there that this use is considered a low traffic volume project or use. So you really don't get that much traffic. It's not like a retail store where you have people coming and going all day. You may get a couple people in the morning, a couple people in the afternoon. You know, midday, everybody's working, nobody's going into their storage facilities to gather whatever they have.
So you're not worried about the crisscross of traffic coming in?
You know, given the sight lines, I'm not too worried about that. And now you're concerned about the entrance, right?
Yeah, I just noticed the entrance, when you come in, you're on the right, but you have to go to the left to use the keypad, and then the exit, your keypad's on the left.
Well, there is a fair distance, so the edge of the roadway to the building is about 75 feet. Now, we've got, in the picture there, as it is drawn, the green space is 60 feet to the, actually, it's 70 feet from the edge of the property line to the keypad. Then you have another 20 feet before you get to the gate. So you have about 90 feet from the edge of the blacktop to the gate. We've also designed the parking spaces deeper than required. Right now, on the plan they're drawn in is 30 feet deep, so somebody can come in and park off to the left or the right. They will accommodate longer trucks, you know, big single-axle, 24, 25-foot box trucks. So we have allowed for extra space. We have allowed for tractor trailers if they have to get in there. Generally, and this came up in the tech meeting, generally, if somebody's coming in moving with a moving truck,
Yeah, I was thinking of
they will have already made a reservation for a space, and at that point, we will inform them of how to get in. A tractor trailer certainly would probably bring in off of West Street, set up a time for them to come into it. You're not going to have somebody just driving in blind with a tractor trailer looking for space. You know, if they're coming in with that much to store, they're going to have tried to plan it out a little bit ahead. But even in that regards, you know, all of the turns at the entrance and throughout the building are gauged so that they will fit tractor trailers. I think it's a WD-50 spec that they have made, as well as the Lunenburg Fire Department's largest truck, the ladder truck.
Okay.
So that can negotiate all the turns in the facility. We have already checked with that. You know, we did meet with the building, Mike, the building inspector, on the parking, and he was good with 10 parking spaces for the amount of traffic that we would be getting in there. We have 6 in the front, 2 all the way in on the western property border, and then 2 to the north by the cell tower. So we have designated 10 parking spaces in there.
I just want to add, you said 8 o'clock, and they gave you till 9. I don't want you to lose an hour.
You know, I thought about it a little bit, and in talking to I talked to the security company afterwards, and they recommended closing the gate at 8, so that if somebody comes in at 8 and gets into the facility, they have time to get back out. Because when the key codes stop, the key code stops. So if somebody that's in at 8 can't get back out at 8:01. So, and then again, if somebody gets in the facility, you don't want them using the gates to get back out again. You know, if they're in there to steal a car or something out of one of the units, you don't want them to be able to get out. So personal key codes after a certain time won't allow access or exit either.
Would you mind showing on the map up there where the parking spaces are located?
Sure.
Thank you.
So we have 3 there, 3 there, 2 here.
Thank you.
And there is a fairly wide space in through here. If somebody came in 50 feet to this building. This is a 40-foot deep building. We intended to, of course, among other things, be able to store travel trailers and small motorhomes. So we've allowed 50 feet for them to be able to access those units.
Thanks.
But most people park in front of their,
Most people will park in front of the doors, correct?
front of
Yeah.
their storage unit to load up whatever they're getting out of the storage unit. The parking would only be for people that are stopping in the office
Yes,
to
that's
talk to you about renting one.
Or
Exact-
employees,
Or employees,
if someone
or-
has a large truck and has car friends come to help
To help
them
them
unload
unload.
it.
Yeah,
Essentially, most people every day coming into are just parking in front of the access door to their storage bin.
correct, yeah. And I do have a couple plans of the concept of the internal layout. We've really tried to design it so that from the abutting properties or from the road frontage, you don't see any activity other than, you know, occasionally people coming in and out of the office, people getting into their units. That's going to happen in the interior. The doors are back here. The doors are on the east face of these back buildings here. So all the access is happening right in here. You know, so these people won't be disturbed. There'll be no noise, no sight, as this is just a blank wall in the back. This is just a landscaped face. There's no access doors in here for people to get to their storage. It's all just right in here. So that really keeps it well contained, keeps the noise down. Again, with no outdoor storage, there's no sightliness, there's no noise, there's no dirt. You know, it's definitely a much better, a much cleaner use of the property compared to what we have now, which unfortunately outdoor storage is just a dusty business at this, especially with no rain like we've had the last 30 days or so.
I don't see any indication of snow storage, and it looks kind of difficult to plow. Is there snow storage indicated on?
What we have planned on for snow storage, we're not planning on putting fixed curbs in these two parking spaces, so that can push off in front of the building as need be. This is a straight push right through here. This is fenced. There'll be a gate there so that we can take and put snow off in this 20-foot strip in the back. And then off in here, we can push snow off in there. This area right in here, we can push snow. Right in the back, that'll be gated as well.
So you're using the large width as part of it to just store the snow?
No, we've got, now this is a 20 by 30 space here, plus we can push it off in the back. This is a 30 by 30 space, there's no access.
Oh, I see what you're talking about, okay.
There's no sign access in here. The access is in the faces. So that gives us, 600 square foot area there. This fence will open up. 1,200 square foot area here, this fence will open up. 900 square feet, this fence will open up. Normally just like this where we can get the loaders in, push it off. We can push off in here. That's about 15 feet off the curb to the fencing. So we have to put in for straight push, straight push, straight push. So there's not a lot of carrying the snow around corners and things like that. So we have thought about the snow removal. Because it is important to have it cleared as quickly and as cleanly as possible for safety issues.
What about the top part where it goes up to that diagonal fence where the shrubs are?
With the chain link.
Where the chain link is?
here as well.
Oh, there's gonna be a gate there to open? Okay, so that's
It
not,
will be fenced for security,
okay,
and then we can open it up and we can push snow off and then close it back.
all right, it doesn't show a fence, I mean a gate, so.
I'm not sure about the technicality of using your drainage basin as a snow storage area. Mm-hmm. Is that allowable? Is that?
Wes? You talking here in the front?
I mean, you've got two storm scepters in your drainage design for the pavement runoff. So you're basically going to be taking snow from the pavement and putting it directly into the basin.
Right in here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the 10-foot strip here against the cell tower.
Okay. Sure. Also, another question on the storm scepters. You've got two. Did I miss any? The storm scepter units, the treatment for the runoff, pavement runoff? Are there just two? I didn't see an operation and maintenance plan. Is that included?
Is that in the stormwater report?
I guess I'm surprised there's no storm sewer running down 13.
No, there is no, unfortunately, the whole of Route 13 has the same problem as I have. The ledge is about that far underground.
Right.
And having watched them jackhammer for 6 months in front of my business 10 years ago, putting a storm sewer in would be prohibitively expensive for the town to try to do that. Right now, the way that the sewer, the way the stormwater runs is it runs through this catch basin, across my property here, across my property at 324, and then catches into a storm drain on Electric Ave that goes down into the swamp across from the old Tri-Town, or the old Whalen Drive-In.
And it's all shallow tillage?
It's all shallow, yes. Yeah, when they took up, when we renovated 324 about 10 years ago, and they dug that up, the original was basically 2x4s with a steel sheet over it, and it just ran across. It was like a subterranean brook. It was amazing. It had never fallen in.
Matt, just so there is a section in the inspection and maintenance section of the post-construction, and there is a sheet, there's a whole page in there about the storm scepter maintenance guidelines.
Excellent.
So we do have an item in there for each device, manholes, detention basins, so forth, so.
I bet you don't own a vacuum truck.
I do not, no.
Hi, I have a question about you have the two large buildings you said are temperature controlled?
Temperature controlled. They'll be heated to 50 degrees and cooled to 80 degrees.
Gotcha. It's just out of curiosity, how does that? So these are the prefab steel?
Prefab steel buildings, correct.
Are those insulated, like some kind of?
They
prefab
are actually, yeah. There are energy standards in the International Building Code that they have to meet. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but Mike requires stamp certified plans.
Gotcha.
with the energy audit figured.
Thanks. And you mentioned those they're sprinkled because of their size?
Yes, yeah. Anything over 7,500 square feet in mass has fire sprinklers in it.
And you mentioned over 20,000 square feet. Was that per building, or was that?
Roughly, yeah. They're just under. They're about 19,000 square feet each.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Now, are you with Easy Storage or is this Rich Birch?
This is just LTN Realty Trust, yeah. This will be a single owner.
Because there's, like in West Boylston, there's vendors that.
There are 4 or 5 REITs, real estate investment trusts, that do self-storage. The self-storage industry right now, about 85% of all facilities are individually owned. Only about 15% of them are owned by, the big 3 conglomerates. I think it's Extra Space, Cube Smart, and there's one other that own about 15% of the market. But the majority of it is individuals. More than half are just own one facility. So, and we did do a full feasibility study. We had a team come in. They spent about 4 days in the area researching all of the different facilities, marking them, seeing what their occupancy rates were, seeing what their rates were, and they definitely deemed that there was a need in the area for another facility. So it's not something that we're just throwing out there haphazardly and hoping to rent. If you went east on Route 2A, you're not going to hit another facility until Air. If you went north up Route 13, you're going to hit one in the north side of Townsend, out on 119. So eastwards, there's nobody. Westwards, there's one climate control in Fitchburg that it will be not comparable to this, but is of this size for the whole of Fitchburg. The rest of them are just old converted factories.
And then there's one on 12 in West Boylston. Is it West Boylston?
Could be way down. Generally, they figure about a 5-mile radius for business.
Yeah.
So, you're not pulling from 20 miles away. People don't want to drive more than 5 or 10 minutes. There are a few in Leominster. When they did the study, they considered Route 2 as a geographical barrier. So North Leominster people would rather come this way than go over Route 2 and try to beat themselves up on the Route 12 traffic. Because most of the larger facilities in Leominster are all on the south side of the center. So I don't know how many of you drive that way during the day, but you could be 20 to 30 minutes to get to the south side of Leominster.
Oh, no, I think it's great.
So at this point, we can come back if we have some more questions on the board. I'd like to open the floor up to public questions. Does anyone in the public have questions for the applicant about the project? No? Okay, seeing none, the next would be, does anyone in the public that would like to speak as a proponent on behalf of the project? Would anyone in the public like to speak as an opponent to the project? Okay, we'll resume with board questions. Anyone else have any other questions for the applicant?
I guess I have a question for Adam first. Do we have any design standards as far as the building facades in the commercial district? It's my first project in actual commercial property here.
No, I mean, it does allow for the,
They're all pulling up their blue books. Hold on, Molly.
Yeah, so 4652C, building facades, materials, and roof lines shall be reviewed under DPR to ensure consistency and compatibility with other structures.
yeah, that's the language I was looking for. I mean,
That's the extent of
it's
it.
a very sort of subjective and contextual review of what the facade looks like. On one side is the applicant's home. On the other side is the applicant's other business.
Yep.
You know, how does this fit into that context? Is it, is it out of place? Do the materials and colors seem to sort of match up and fit? That's all, and, the board could look at Route 13 and say, well, there isn't anything consistent, so this isn't interrupting a specific style.
Yeah, I ask because in my professional life, I've had the pleasure of putting some storage facilities in front of various planning boards, and we've had to do some really silly things to meet their whims of what it should look like.
Like Adam said, in the Whalum area, there is no distinct design. This is the end of the commercial district for Whalum. As you go south on 13, you have Lakeview Plaza, which is just a wooden facade over the brick. A little bit further down, you get into Proctor Landscape Supply, which is a completely open storage facility for bark mulch and stone and loam. Then you have a gas station, you have an old restaurant. So there really isn't a uniqueness to the designs down in Whalum. It's certainly, we're trying to keep it a little more upscale in its look. I just don't want to have steel buildings with doors that people come and rent stuff.
Yep.
One of the targets we were told in the feasibility study is to make sure that it looks, feels, and is secure enough that somebody would send their wife there at 9 o'clock at night. So we do want to keep with the landscape, not just have the steel buildings out there, have a few doors so people know that it's a storage facility, but then a nice bed, trees in front of the building that will probably be a little taller than the building. It will be grassed right from the edge of the blacktop all the way to the building.
Yep.
We'll have it sprinkled. We're not looking for a sign that's outside of what is allowed in the regulations now, but there will be, not just a neon sign, something that will, look good with the building.
Yep. I just asked because this is not so much a tall building, but a really long building.
Yep.
And just wanted to call attention to the facade of the building. I know you gave us a little sketch of what you anticipated it might look like, but is it just all metal panel? There's no no other articulation material on the facade, or?
Not really, no. No, I mean, when the colors that I sent out, I mean, it's not going to be just steel edge roof. There's going to be a nice cap on the roof. It'll be a little bit of a soffit and a vent, so you'll have a little overhang over the doors. It's not just wall.
Yeah.
We are in tune to making sure that it does look presentable.
I don't want to beat you up over it because I know how it feels.
But because I do live there, so I want to make sure that this is an improvement to the neighborhood,
Yeah.
not a detriment.
Yeah, and usually, from my experience, we've been asked to make it look like a colonial building or something like that for a building that's just way too big to look like a colonial building to begin with. And it ends up making it worse sometimes.
Sometimes it sticks out like a sore thumb, exactly.
Yeah.
But being a plant guy, I would rather dress it up with plant material
Yes.
than try to put a facade or something that just makes it stick out even worse.
Yeah, I noticed your planting plan and it looks
Yeah,
Very thoughtful.
We want to do some substantial plantings in there to help soften it up, make it look inviting.
Any other, oh, sorry.
So, no, good questions there. Just to go through what is reviewable, and I agree that I think the applicant, this is a pretty, thoughtfully prepared application, so I'm not I think, like as we just reviewed with the language, it's pretty, like you said, subjective and context sensitive. We do, if anyone on the board had strong thoughts, roof colors are reviewable for consistency with other things in the district. My main thing is so what you're proposing seems, pretty decent to me for a storage facility of this nature. The plans that we have don't really, I think, fully capture the description you've provided as far as the shape and construction of the buildings.
Okay.
I'm wondering, for example, I know this isn't part of your official plan set, but just enough to what I'm looking for personally in the plan set would be elevations for all the for each that cover each of the building's roof lines, so that we would be capturing in the application the proposed roof lines. And if you had any, the pictures you showed, looked like pretty, like you said, decent quality roofing. I don't know if you have any construction or assembly documentation on those that would be appropriate to include.
There will be more available. It's a matter of making sure that the footprints are somewhat secure before they start going through and designing all of the interiors. So we're at kind of a concept for the interior.
Yeah, the interior, honestly, I guess just to be clear about, I'm really, my thought is, as we approve the plan, I just want to be really clear what we're approving.
Okay.
And our design bylaw doesn't care about the interior
Okay.
much. I mean, it doesn't care almost zero about the interior. The landscaping, I think you've done a really nice job with, and I think the buildings
So you're looking a little bit more of a 3D representation, or a head-on representation of what the building's going to look like, say, as you're driving by.
Well, that would
Okay.
be that would be nice, and also just like I said, that would be good. That would be great,
Yeah.
and that would help clarify as well, and also just any other elevations so that we are approving sort of specific roof lines
Yep.
for the buildings. If it's not too much trouble, that would be
Okay.
very.
I can certainly get some of that together. I mean, right now, the way it's planned to follow the grade, they're going to be poured on 1% grades to help maintain the grade, so that you're not going to have this corner of the building the same height as that. Now, there is about a 4-foot drop, and there will be a 1-foot drop in there, so it's about a 5-foot drop, but it's going to be very gradual over the 200 or 250 feet. So it's not just going to be, you're not going to look at it and see it dropping down. 1% is very hard to perceive, and it will follow the curvature of the road as it goes. So as you're driving by, you really won't perceive the drop, but it will maintain that height from your perspective driving by.
Gotcha. And so, do I understand correctly that all these structures have pitched roofs?
Yes, they will. Yeah, none of them are. You don't want a completely flat roof. They will all be pitched.
Okay.
So you will have runoff go, and it can be directed. You just don't want uncontrolled runoff. If you took and gabled them and had all the runoff going into the blacktopped area, it's very, very hard to slow that down and treat that before it gets into the catch basin.
Yep.
We were very aware of that in trying to design this. I mean, unfortunately, it's ledge, so most of it's impervious anyways. But if we can take in the front here and have all of this, half of the site going off into a nice grassed, swaled area, that slows the water down. It doesn't let it pick up. There's there's very little sand, and salt's going to be 40 feet off the road, so you're not going to be picking up all the contaminants. Then it will be treated as it goes into the catch basins and then off into the detention pond, and the same this way here into the retention basin, into underground retention, and then off into the catch basin. So we really want to try to slow the water down as much as possible, have as little of it as possible running over the blacktop, both for the stormwater itself and for the safety issues of the ice in the facility.
Thanks for explaining all that. Any other questions on the board for the applicant?
I don't see where you're tying into the water. Was you tying it into on 13
West
No, the
Street.
water's going to come up from West Street.
on West Street?
Yeah, it should be a utilities plan.
Okay.
I think if you look, it runs behind the two front buildings, sort of up the driveway from West Street. The main runs in behind the two front buildings, and I believe it either tees off or Y's off right about where the entrance driveway is.
Like I said, I've talked to the Lunenburg Water District, and And they did recommend, as opposed to coming off of Electric Ave, where I currently have a service to the 1 inch, to come off of West Street. Because there is no ledge right in there, I can drive right in without any issues at all, without having to blast to try to knock the ledge out. And then it will continue right up here in the building. The 8-inch will tee off into this building for the sprinkler. It'll tee off into this building for the sprinkler, and then the main water line for the office, the 1 inch will come off of here. So that's where, and then the fire hydrant is also marked for the fire hydrant here that the fire department requested. And there is, if they can't get to this one, there's also a fire hydrant here. So there are two within about 300 feet of the front entrance.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No.
Any way we can do that front entrance in granite instead of the bituminous concrete?
That was actually a request that Adam made at the tech meeting. Yes, that will be. We just haven't updated the plan since we met on Tuesday to have granite curbing at the entrance.
Number 21.
Will that be at both entrances?
At this point, no, it's just going to be at the main entrance because the other entrance, the durability of granite is obvious at the front entrance where that's where all the main traffic is.
Sure.
The other entrance is only for EMS.
Yep.
So there really will be very little use of that area there, so the bituminous should hold up fine.
Hey, question for you, Adam. If we're, anything else from the board first, we're gonna, so, we've asked, so, overall, I think there's some, the applicants answered a lot of questions for us, and, I think that what I'm hearing is pretty positive towards the project. We've asked the applicant if he can provide, some elevations showing the roof lines of the buildings, and I think your idea of elevation for the street view for the front and the side would also be great. Thanks
Okay.
for offering that as well.
Yeah.
Can we close the public hearing tonight, or do we leave it open to receive those documents?
You're going to want to leave it open. My recommendation would be to continue to the next meeting. You still haven't received your peer review,
Good point.
so I imagine that between now and the 8th, the peer review engineer and the applicant's engineer should be able to hammer out any issues that come up in the review and provide a letter outlining what those issues were. If there's anything that needs to be deferred to the board, it would be included in that, and that would give you the opportunity to take new information on a thing that comes up that the board may need to act on, and would provide, the opportunity for either the applicant or the board to have questions or alterations or that kind of stuff. And I would imagine that you could probably close it once you have a clean peer review and are comfortable with the information submitted.
So I would make a motion to continue the public hearing to May 18th.
June 8th?
June 8th.
We don't have a May 18th meeting?
Yeah, Memorial Day.
Memorial Day.
It's May 18th?
Oh, no, May 18th is next
25th.
Monday.
Oh, all right, I'm sorry. Right,
So
that's only a
June
week.
8th, yeah, June 8th would be our next meeting.
June 8th. I would make a motion to continue this to June 8th.
Second.
So, just one
And
question.
at time of 6:35?
Yep, if that works for the agenda. I don't know how the agenda already looks.
So, I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to confirm. So we obviously have some board change with the election and whatnot. So it'll be 3 members from the public hearing. That'll be enough to approve the project, I'm
That will.
assuming. Okay, excellent.
So I have one question. I'm probably a little late. Do we have impervious coverage for commercial zone? I don't think we do.
We do, it's 85% per the design standards, but
I don't see that in the zoning requirement.
well, how about you and I discuss that offline,
Sure.
and we can,
No
I
problem.
can pass that along to the applicant if there's a concern.
Sure.
There is in 465 an 85% development
Yeah, it's
threshold.
It's just a lot of it.
Yep, yeah,
I'm
but,
just curious.
and I just did quick math. If I take 500 feet times 20, that's 10,000 feet there out of the 120,000 feet. This is another 40, so that's another 20,000 feet here. So just in this green line and this green line, that's 30,000 square feet.
I'm sorry, it's a procedural matter.
Oh, okay.
If we want to discuss this, we got to withdraw the motion because we can't discuss testimony while there's motion on the floor.
Just wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
We had looked at it, though.
All right, well, we're going to be continuing, so hopefully that'll give opportunity to resume this. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Okay, vote on the motion to continue to June 8th at 6:35 p.m. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thanks very much for coming in today. Look forward to it.
Thanks, Rich. Looks great.
Okay, just a moment here to clean up the workspace.
Marjorie, do you want these back?
Yes, please.
She wants them back.
Adam, can you grab those for, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda today is going to be a continuation of the Highfield Village public hearing. As soon as I get this out of the way, we'll...
What did you do with that four folder?
I'm gonna miss it.
Okay. All right. Town of Lunenburg public hearing. The Lunenburg Planning Board will hold a public hearing on November 10th, 2014, 6:35. November 10th. Do I have the right thing?
Yeah, that was the original.
Oh, this is the original. Should I read this?
Yes.
Okay. November 10th, 2014, 6:35 p.m., Town Hall, 17 Main Street, Lunenburg, Mass. To hear and discuss a definitive plan per the rules and regulations governing the subdivision land, Section 5.6, cluster development of the protective bylaw of the Town of Lunenburg. The application is to construct 66 dwelling units off the south side of Northfield Road between Massachusetts Avenue, map 057, parcel 0031, and Northfield Road, map 037, parcel 0009. Owners are John and David Saliba, 227 Lewis Wharf, Boston, Mass. 02110, and Robert Lavroni, trustee, Lunenburg Nominee Trust, 880 Winter Street, Suite 340, Waltham, Mass. 02451. Applicant is JEG Holdings, LLC, 46 Prince Street, P.O. Box 5515, Beverly, Mass. 01915. Copies are on file in the planning office. Notice of said hearing will be duly posted in the usual posting places. So we're continuing that public hearing that was opened in November 2014. So we've announced it. We've introduced the board members. I'd like to ask Adam, our director, if there's any minutes, findings, or other relevant reports he'd like to brief us on as we enter.
You know, I think that I would be better off passing it to the applicant. You all received an email from me this afternoon giving sort of the brief overview of a conversation I had with Mr. Godfrey this morning about the status of the project, the engineer involved, and where he is with the project now. And I think that it's probably better represented that he by himself.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good evening. When I was here most recently with the engineer for the project, Mr. Oldfield, and your...
Sorry, I'm really sorry to interrupt you. The volume's not real good. Maybe you could hold the microphone up. I apologize.
I'll speak up. When I was here most recently with the engineer for the project, Mr. Oldfield, and your consulting engineer from Ross & Associates, we left it that I would meet with Mr. Oldfield on April 22nd and return here today, either with all of the outstanding questions and comments addressed or with a new engineering firm. So in the interim, and I think Adam is aware of the details, which perhaps don't need to be repeated in a public forum, but suffice it to say that Mr. Oldfield is unable to continue as engineer on the project, and would be unavailable to us, for the foreseeable future. So with that unfortunate set of circumstances, I have replaced the project team, if you will. I will introduce the project team and let them speak for themselves, but my intention is to move forward as rapidly as I can to put the project into a condition where it meets all of the requirements of the town, and that you folks will consider it satisfactory for approval. That is my intention. So I want to first introduce Paul Haverty, who will be the new face of the project, or at least the secondary face of the project going forward, and he'll explain to you where we are and introduce our new engineers, who are well known here, Messrs. Whitman and Bingham.
Good evening. For the record, Paul Haverty, Blattman, Bobrowski, Mead, and Talaman, representing the applicant. I'm not quite sure that will be the face of the application moving forward. I think you guys are going to want to see a lot more of our new engineer, Whitman and Bingham Associates. And with me tonight is Jamie Rowe from Whitman and Bingham. As it's been explained to me, this is a project that's been in front of this board for a while now. And this board has expressed some concerns with regard to whether or not it's been moving forward expeditiously and whether it will move forward expeditiously in the future. So the client came to both me and to Whitman and Bingham Associates and asked us if we could get involved in this project so that he could ensure for himself, certainly, that this project is going to move forward in the way that he wants it to, but also to show to the board that he is in fact very serious about making sure that this project moves forward. I know that one of the concerns that was raised to me was that there are going to be a couple of members of the board that are going to be leaving in the near future, perhaps like after tonight. So the question was, would there be enough members of the board left to be able to vote on this project? So what I would suggest to the board is that we continue this hearing for 2 to 3 months, and Jamie can explain why he will need that amount of time to review the plans and make sure that they're in the state that he needs them to be for him to put his name on them. But in that time frame, I would suggest that we renotice this hearing at my client's expense. Doing so will allow the board that's in place when we come back to you to be able to vote all the members, because we would at that point present the information as if we were starting over. And in fact, we're going to have to do that either way, because as Whitman and Bingham comes in, they are going to be presenting this as their plan, not as somebody else's plan. So they're going to walk you through everything just as if this were a brand new application.
Okay, thank you.
So, in light of that, would it be a continuation, or would it be more of a vote and then a restart with the new board?
It has something to do with the new board.
Well, we're going to start.
That's not
we're
the
going to start
applicant's
new
fault.
with a new public hearing, right? With a new engineering firm, new data. Does it make sense to just continue the old one?
Well, I believe it will be the same when we, Jesse Johnson resigned, and we had to get a new peer review engineer, and we had to give him 6 months to read all the backlog, learn all the engineering, so it's now just, the court is turned, and it's now on the applicant's side again that his engineer has issues, and again, I feel horrible for Kent and wish him nothing but the best, but I think it will be that same.
Right. It certainly is something that the board is well within their rights to continue this for that period of time. The renoticing allows a reset of the voting rights of the board members, even if they've missed more than one meeting, because there will not be any information that has been presented that they haven't heard. Every abutter would have had the opportunity to come from the outset of the new information process and hear that. So it doesn't present any issues for the board to do it in that manner. We would prefer to avoid a situation where we actually have to pay a new application fee. Certainly is an issue. To withdraw the application is not something my client would want to do. And there's really no need for it. The continuance with the renoticing accomplishes exactly the same thing.
So I understand what your question is, Kent, and I understand I think it's sort of a semantic thing. The board can continue. And I think that what happened in November was, I mean, this project has essentially been on the board's docket since 2007, if not earlier. And it's been continued in various manners. When I came on board in October, it was, oh, we have this continued hearing. Well, when does it continue to? Well, whenever we have time. And at that point, you know, we had a discussion about continuing to a date certain, the fact that that hadn't happened. So we renoticed the hearing at that time. And we kind of restarted the project by doing that because we were having the same general issue as we had a hearing that had been continued, but it wasn't continued to a time and place that someone could reasonably say, hey, I know when I can go and make my piece. The applicant's concern about withdrawing and having to pay another fee, the board, as you know, has the ability to waive any and all portions of the project. So if that was a comfort level thing and that was the only obstacle, the board could clearly work out a waiver of fee if that was the one thing, and a withdrawal and reapplication was something that made the board feel more comfortable. Legally, can the board continue, re-advertise, and everything kind of resets? I think so. I don't see that as a legal impediment to moving forward. It's a procedural thing, it's a comfort level, and I don't know that one is necessarily better than the other. They're kind of both the same thing.
Is there any difference in what gets accepted as previous data that was submitted?
No, because I think especially in this instance where there's a new engineering firm coming in, and I don't want to speak for the new project engineer, but my experience with engineers is they're a little fickle, and they like to know that the things they're putting their stamp on specifically, they're comfortable with and meet their standards. And everybody has different standards, but we're aware of who Whitman and Bingham is, and so I think what you're going to end up with is, if not a wholly new set of information, a well-reviewed past set of information that is substantially different or substantially more complete upon Whitman and Bingham, or even if it weren't Whitman and Bingham, anybody else who were to come in and take over a project like this, you're going to get a substantially altered or completed set of information that is going to bear somebody's professional life through a stamp. So, I don't think past information, and I think you're probably alluding to the EIR, that's a state-approved document, so that doesn't really change. I know that there's been concerns raised about the age of some of the data used in obtaining the EIR, specifically traffic. I think that now, as part of the continuance, would be a good time to voice those concerns and make requests that the applicant look at the newest possible data and plug it into the traffic study that they have and see how that may change or affect the outcomes that they're basing that traffic study on. And I think that, most of the time when a new engineer approaches a project like this, that's something that they would want to look at anyway, because it may alter the way that they look at the way that the off-site mitigation is being addressed, the things that get put into it. So I think it's a reasonable thing to talk about now, and I think that, based on the conversations that happened at the last public hearing about where the project was and how slowly it's proceeded, and the board's concerns about getting it finalized, the granting a continuance, it's, there's some conversation about, okay, we may be willing to do this, but we need to know that this is going to happen in order to be comfortable doing it.
Okay. So I did, in reference to that, I did reach out to the MRPC and talk to them about the traffic counts in that area. And apparently the traffic counts in that area are not something that they do on a regular basis. They only do them when requested.
Okay.
And they were requested to do them, I guess, as part of this project, but they only did them in 2008 and 2010. And between 2008 and 2010, they saw an 11% increase in the traffic. So, I mean, we could extrapolate it or we don't extrapolate. I don't know exactly what the right course is, but 2010 is still 5-year-old data anyway, so to base decisions off of that information would be bad. For the record, the actual numbers from 2008 were 9,800, and that increased to 10,900 in 2010.
And that's coming out of the new
That's
entrance?
Chase Road at Northfield. So, and that's where I asked for the numbers. They also gave me the Northfield Road west of Chase Road, Northfield Road, and that was 8% increase. In 2008, it went 1,200 to 1,300 in 2010. So it went up by 100. So my assertion is that those numbers are increasing, and as more development goes into effect and more people are commuting and so forth, that the numbers that were used in the traffic study to determine the impact on these intersections could be dated, and we might want to readdress how we handle those intersections to handle the large influx.
Well, but yeah, between that time and now, maybe there's some tripping of the 24-hour warrant that may qualify for the installation of a traffic signal, or
Right.
may get us at least closer.
Right, I don't think that we can go to try to get that without updated data.
Correct.
So it was in, the MRPC told me it was in our best interest to try to get updated data as a result of the project.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the planning board's going to make a decision, updated data in whatever aspect is going to give you a more complete picture of what you're dealing with.
Yep, so that's the detail there, and you're right, that's where my concern lied.
Do we know what the date was of the previously conducted traffic study?
I think it was...
What year?
We got it here, I think.
That's the data.
I don't have it here, but I have it in here if you want to give me a second.
Oh, sure, no. I mean, I'm presuming it was more than, a year or two ago.
I'm sorry?
Said I'm presuming it was more than a year or two ago.
Oh, yes. So the study was done in 2009 with data from 2007.
Okay.
July 7th, 2009.
So as part of any revised submittal, this board would like to see updated traffic counts.
That'd be
Yes,
helpful.
that would be great.
Okay.
Because we'd like to know what the impact is going to be on that Northfield and Chase Road intersection. Because there was a lot of concern presented, both in and out of the meeting, but in public forum, people presented a lot of concern about that intersection as well. Because I don't know if you've traveled it, but it is actually hard to get in and out of there. There's a lot of traffic on Route 13 there.
Unless the board has any other questions, I would turn it over to Jamie Rowe so he can give a little introduction and explain what it is he needs to do in order to get them ready to come back in front of you.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jamie Rowe from Whitman and Bingham Associates, and I am here tonight with Mr. Haverty supporting Mr. Godfrey's extension request for this project before the board. Hopefully, being selected as the engineer of record moving this project forward lends a little bit of credibility to the request. We have a very good track record with this planning board in the town of Lunenburg itself, and hopefully we take this project to fruition. What we need to do, Whitman and Bingham needs to do in order to take this project on is do a complete project audit. And we're going through all the documents, A to Z, and we're going to make sure we're comfortable with all the information contained within the plans that have been submitted to the board and the CAD drawings. Some of you may remember, some of you may not, but Whitman and Bingham started this project many years ago, and we actually designed the preliminary subdivision plan, so we have a lot of records.
Weren't you the original engineer of the project when it started?
What's that?
You were the original
Yes.
engineer when it started?
Yes, we were.
And then Kent left?
Yes, yep. And so we do have a lot of information at Whitman and Bingham already on the project itself. So hopefully you look at this request in a positive way. We take this project very seriously, and we're looking forward to working with the town, the planning board, and Mr. Godfrey and Mr. Haverty to move this project forward. Thank you.
Well, that completes our presentation, unless the board has any other questions.
Any other questions from the board?
So what is the date of the extension we're looking for? If a motion was to be made to extend?
Said 2 to 3 months, so.
Right.
that
Yeah,
was
I-
3 months, so I'm looking, what is that date?
And Mr. Rowe is telling me 3 months. So
3 months, so we're in May, June, July, August.
I mean, quite honestly, I would say first meeting of September is probably the most reasonable. I know everybody wants to do a lot of hard work over the summer. It gets a little bit more difficult when you fold in vacations and
So what's that
some of the
date,
other
the
stuff.
first
That's
one
what
in
I'm pulling
September?
up right now. Would be September 7. I'm sorry,
Right.
September 14.
Yeah, okay,
Because
September
that's
14.
the first Monday.
So I would make a motion for discussion. I would make a motion,
Before I make a motion, I have some more, a couple of questions.
but usually you make a motion and then you have to
No,
discuss.
no discussion about the motion. He still has
I
questions.
still have questions about for the public hearing, and we got to get
Okay.
public input, so. But thanks, hold that thought. We want that in a few minutes.
Go ahead.
I have a question. So one of the things that, and I apologize for not remembering all the official nature of each of them, but there were several state filings that needed to be done to approve
The
this-
MIPA.
Yeah, the MIPA, the
environmental impact report.
impact report. Yes, for this project. As part of the change in engineering and the review, will those need to be resubmitted to the state for approval, or?
And I apologize, I've only been involved in the project for a week now, so I'm not sure at what state they are at. If they've already been approved, they've already been issued, there may need to be a notice of project change submitted. If they haven't been issued yet, then probably would still need to submit a project change if there are any significant changes that result to the project, both from bringing Whitman and Bingham in, but also through the rest of the hearing process before this board. I mean, I think it would be a little premature to go back to the state and change any of those approvals until we know what the plans are going to look like at the end process.
Yeah, I guess going into that process, that's a question I have is the plan really to improve the documents and improve and refine the documents for what is essentially the same plan, or is Whitman and Bingham sort of rethinking elements of the design as well? What's going in?
My understanding is, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Whitman and Bingham is going to go in and look to complete all of the information that was previously submitted, but there are no wholesale changes to the plans that are being considered at this time, unless some sort of issue comes up that requires it.
Okay, so mainly it's to address the deficiencies in the current plans.
Correct.
Well, sort of.
And I know that there's an outstanding comment letter from Ross Associates. As part of any submittal, all of those questions will be answered, either by plan changes or simply by a response.
Gotcha. No, thanks for clarifying. When Whitman and Bingham was speaking, it wasn't totally clear to me what level of review and reconsideration the plans had. It sounds like what you're saying, design's basically the same.
Design's the design unless we find that there's an issue with it.
Gotcha.
Hopefully that's not the
Is our
case.
peer engineer staying the same, Adam?
I would think it would make sense to have them continue. I mean, they're 207 comments into it. They should
Exactly.
probably
That's what-
remain and, make sure
But
that those issues are addressed, and then, move forward with how those are addressed and whatever happens to go forward with it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from the board before I go to the public?
I have a question for Adam, I guess. If this has been in planning for 7 years and everything's going to be re-reviewed for months at a time by an engineering company, than to be approved by members who have only sat for 1 to 3 years on the previous stuff that's mostly wholly revised or rehashed. Is that truly nothing to the planning board for having missed 5 to 7 years of the process?
What do you mean, is it nothing to the plan? I mean, I guess you can look at it two ways. You could say, you know what, we're done with continuances, we're done with this project, withdraw it. And they could say, all right, we don't want to fight, we don't want to have a denial on record, we'll withdraw it. And you could say, and we're not going to waive your fee. And so they come back and they pay the fee again, and they submit all the information that Whitman and Bingham does based on the design that's been sort of languishing for the past 7 years. And so you get all the same information that you would have gotten if you did the continuance, but you get it as a new filing. So you're hearing all the same information. It's not like they're going to come in and say, back in 2007, we were in front of this board and we said this, you should remember that. I imagine that based on it being a new engineer, there now being council involved, they're going to show up on September 14th, they're going to put this up on the easel, and they're going to run through the plan. And now we have a comment letter, so those are going to be addressed, but when those get addressed, that set of plans is going to be re-reviewed, which would be almost like the original review, because I imagine through the review process, Whitman and Bingham is going to identify maybe even additional issues that Ross missed, or they say, okay, well, if we correct this, this happens, and now we have to correct that. And so they're essentially creating a new set of plans. I don't know that there's any historical record that isn't going to be included in whatever presentation is made that would make the members of the board who are sitting at the time feel as if they're not up to speed or have some deficiency in knowledge. I'm going to be honest, this is a case that it sort of baffles me. I'm at a loss. I've never worked on a subdivision that's been in front of a board for this long, so this is all kind of new to me, but in my knowledge of the general laws, of subdivision practices, of rules and regulations, none of this procedural stuff is really wacky. It's just the length of time is kind of crazy. So I think that it's really kind of a perception thing. There's no real difference whether it's a continuance or a new filing. You're going to get the same packet of information. So to me, it's a semantic difference.
Well, my perception of the public hearing on November last year was that this board was asking questions that were answered by, well, the board said such and such, and none of us were actually on that board.
Yeah, and I think I think that was based on the project engineer at the time. Having a history with the project and saying, well, I remember, this member of the board who was here all those many years ago had this question and I answered it for them. I don't think that history exists now. You're dealing with somebody who, other than the applicant, who wasn't involved with the project. And honestly, if I recall the hearing in November, the engineer was the one who made the majority of references to previous boards and the way that they interpreted things. That's kind of out the window at this point, from my perspective.
Our plan is to essentially present anew. We don't have the institutional memory of what happened any more than the board members who weren't here have that institutional memory. There will certainly be no questions moving forward that are going to be considered out of bounds or that are going to be met with a response of, we've already addressed that. Moving forward, it is going to be as though we started completely from scratch. And the board can ask whatever questions it may, and we will certainly answer them.
Oh. Well, I guess in that light, I don't see why they don't withdraw and resubmit.
Well, for one thing, there are potentially grandfather rights that have to do with having filed an application within a certain date. I have absolutely no idea what those may be, because I wasn't involved in the project until last week. But I certainly can't advise my client to accept the withdrawal without knowing how that might impact him. And again, I don't see the need for it when substantively you're getting to the exact same place.
And if I'm not wrong, I believe we went and brought this to our town council, and his recommendation was the same thing, that, as you said, the continuation is what makes sense. It makes more sense to continue it than to do what you did. There's nothing impacting either party by continuing.
And my firm represents numerous municipalities, and that's the exact same advice we would give to
Yeah, no,
one
that's
of the
what
boards we
our town
represent.
council gave us, because we've had this concern. Members on the board have had this concern, so we did bring it to town council and get his opinion. And he said, no, there's no reason to just continue, as long as you're coming in front of us.
Right, and as long as we're renoticing.
And you're committing that you're going to do this on this day, and you meet that you got NEPA by the time you said you were going to, and so forth. He said there's no reason to not continue it.
Okay, any other questions before we go out to the public here?
So just to expand a little bit on what Matthew was saying, I think part of, I was a little concerned in the same frame, because we had asked some questions about core design attributes of it, like where the roads were and the main access ways of which roads and so forth. And we were told that those decisions were made based upon input from a previous planning board that none of us were on. And so that's where some of that concern came from, I think. So just so you understand that when you're looking at the design, the planning board is looking for the best optimal design, not the best design that fits within the criteria that a previous planning board may have or may have not put as a restriction.
One benefit to keeping the hearing open, of course, is that as it is an ongoing application, there can continue to be a line of feedback both through the planner and through the review engineer, which you can't do if there's no application in front of this board.
Yeah, I can see the benefits to continuing it, but I just would also like to echo the kind of emotion that Matt is putting out here, that we are frustrated with how long it's taken. We know that the applicant is probably also frustrated at how long it's taken, but I especially don't want to think the members of the public and the abutters, I don't want them to feel that we've forgotten about them either, because they used to show up in crowds at the beginning of this process, and now they just gotten so frustrated there's no one here anymore.
Well,
a couple times it was just they all showed up and nothing more happened, and we continued it. And
That's possibly a good segue. Do you have...
I just want to, again, echo that I want to feel like we're getting a new presentation, and I don't want to feel like we felt at the November hearing, and I think members of the public felt that, oh, these things are decided already, and we should just be approving them because that's the way it's been thought of.
Well, nothing's decided until this board issues a decision, so.
I know, that's how I'm sitting here. Was I at that November meeting?
And I think that you make a valid point, Damon, and I think that the thing that you can kind of look at is the applicant has moved on from the previous engineer, and I think that the financial ramifications of that are not insignificant. And while there's a time delay, I think there's also it's sort of a signal that he's at the point where he wants to finish this project by moving to someone that potentially can finish in the time frame that they're actually proposing. The renotice may bring all of those people back out because they're going to get a letter. And, a lot of times that letter has a lot more impact than actually being at the hearing and saying, oh, we're going to continue it to this time. And people don't write it down, they forget, especially where a lot of the continuances haven't been, well, it's going to be here in 2 weeks. It's been, it's going to be 3 months, or it's going to be, so sometimes the letter is a big part of that. I completely understand what you're saying, and I think that the neighbors were a little put off by the presentation the last time around too.
Did you get calls or writing on that? Do you have
No, I think that
resident names that called in, said they were upset with the public hearing?
I don't think it was the public hearing. I think it was the tone of the presentation. And I think that it was evident from the questions that they asked the way they reacted to the answers they got, and quite honestly, the manner in which they all left. And I don't think it was the board specifically that they were upset with. I think that they felt that there was disillusionment with, well, the project is inevitable. And unfortunately, sometimes subdivisions are, but there are a lot of things that can still be discussed and sort of hammered out.
And I could be wrong and misspeak, and this could be a different subdivision, but is this a subdivision that went to sewer and we changed the sewering to benefit an area of need on, is it Whiting Street? So they redid the whole plan to benefit that the sewer would come down Whiting, where there's homes there, that they're gonna now bring a septic line to, a sewer line to, and they're gonna be able to hook in? Is that this one?
Well, they're not bringing sewer to any of the homes that I'm aware of. They're bringing it down the street. Yes, yeah,
Yes, they're bringing the line down
Correct.
that's needed, so the residents can tap into.
correct.
That was something they did, they changed the plan on. Okay, I just want to make sure I was on the right one. All right.
Anything else for me?
No, thank you very much. We're going to take some questions. We may have some more questions for you via the public. Does anyone in the public have questions they would like to ask of the applicant via the board? Okay, would anyone like to, in the public, like to speak as a proponent of the project? Would anyone in the public like to speak as an opponent of the project? Any public comment on the project generally? Okay. So, all right. Well, that's good. Any other?
I think the public's good.
So we're going to go back to the entertaining the motion for the.
I would make a motion to continue Highfield Village to September 14th at a time when the agenda is more firmed up. You can work with the planning director on the specific time, but I would make a motion to do so.
I'm sorry. What was the motion for?
A motion to continue the Highfield Village public hearing to September 14th at a time more closer to September for Adam to book the specific.
I would prefer that you just pick the time now. We'll put it in the agenda.
6:35?
Yeah.
Perfect. 6:35, September 14th is my motion.
Second again.
Any discussion?
Is it a possibility to make a continuance conditional? It doesn't seem to make any sense, but my
Conditional
understanding. Well, my understanding of the last continuance that I made the motion for was that if they had addressed the review comments, then we would continue further, but if they had not, then they would withdraw. But that's my recollection of the meeting, and I just...
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back and watch specifically. I think that it was address the review comments fully, withdraw, or come to a point where you have made some significant progress. And so I think that whether moving on with a new engineer is considered significant progress, or, you know, it's kind of a subjective, you know, again, as I said, you're aware of the amount of work that goes into a project like this, and to switch designers 7 years into a project is not a small decision. And whether or not that constitutes significant progress to you personally and the board as a whole is something that I can't decide.
I've just never seen any project go more than 2 years before it was either approved or...
I've made my statement on
right
that.
I mean, 7 years, the application fee was made to cover 2 years of bookkeeping and record keeping and work by the town, and I certainly don't mean to pull anything out from under anybody, but you know, a lot of the time we've passed things or let things go because of the recession, the economic times, or lack of money. Well, it affects everyone, and it affects the townspeople, how much we can get done at a board meeting. And when we spend an hour and a half or an hour 3 or 4 times a year on something that just gets continued to get rehashed and then come back, then, you know, that's time lost that we could have been improving our bylaws, or we could have been updating some things, or we could have been coming together with new things for the town. I just can't see how the town is benefiting at all by granting this extension. The town in general, I don't see how it benefits. That's my comment.
Any other comment? Discussion? I just have one question. I know you just made the motion. Did that include a renotice?
Yes, that's what
I
they're.
mean, I think that was,
I give it.
that was offered, and I think
Yes.
that,
It's going to be required.
I mean, it's on the, yeah, I think all in all, it's going to be in everybody's best interest.
Okay.
I think
just want to
the,
make sure it's part of the motion, that's
With
all.
a butter notice, yes.
Okay.
you have a second to the amendment to the motion?
I think we already got,
Well, she just amended her motion.
No, it was with, my motion always was with, as he requested. His request was to continue with a butter notification.
okay, let's amend it just to be sure.
Sure.
I move we amend it with the abutter renotification.
Well, she's made the, she amended
that-
her motion.
Anyone
Do you
second?
second, you continue to second?
All right, great. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the continuance with the renotification? The continuance is for September 14th at 6:35 PM, 2015.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye. Okay, I believe it passes 3-2.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. All right, so I think that wraps that up. I'm gonna just no folders to collect. I'm just gonna hand the plastic thing in.
It's not going to tax me too much.
All right, okay, here we have a little issue maybe, not a big issue. So on our agenda, we only have we don't have the public hearing minutes. Is that okay?
No public hearing minutes.
That looks like these are PH. Oh, so, oh, sorry. I lost it. Sorry, my bad. Good. We have no problem. Excellent, sorry. Should have known. It was me.
So are we looking for a motion for the 4:27:15 minutes?
Oh, I love that. That'd be great.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of 4:27:15 that were emailed to us.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I make a motion to approve the minutes, the warrant article hearing on April 27th, 2015.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And we have two 4:14 executive minutes that
I think we have to go in, do we have
need
to?
to be read.
we have to
No.
be-
They can be approved in open session.
Open session, okay. Sorry.
But we need to read them.
Okay.
Executive
But
session.
you're the only one who needs to read them.
We've been waiting for you.
Oh, I apologize. You've been waiting for me to read them.
I was not there. I don't think Ken was there either, right?
Do you want to make a motion to approve those?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session on 2/4/14.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
She did it.
Oh, cool. All right, thanks. All right, so now we're on committee reports. Joanne, anything from MRPC?
No, I have nothing to report, and I talked to Marjorie because Bobby Joe worked at MRPC, and she always sent the agendas. Ken, are you getting agendas and meeting notices from MJTC?
Yeah.
Who sends them? It's not Glen Eaton, is it?
No,
It's the Brow.
I'd have to look it up, but
I can't remember her first name.
Bobby Joe?
No, her last name is Brow, I believe.
Brown?
Brow. B-R-O-W.
I get them
Because-
from Linda Parmenter.
Linda Palmenter is the
That's MPO.
Glenn's executive assistant. We've got to check on the MRPC. I don't know if they're meeting. I've not gotten any meeting postings that they usually send to Marjorie to post. To the
Stephanie
town
Brown.
clerk to post.
Are you
And so I don't know that the
MJTC?
MRPC has
okay.
met since Bobby Joe has been
Interesting.
laid off.
I wonder if they changed.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. Anything on capital planning committee, Joanna?
No, Capital Planning Committee presented everything to the Board of Selectmen, and they are still meeting. They had a meeting last Tuesday. They're going to try to, at least once a month, have meetings to, instead of just doing that short-term window, to kind of come up with 3-year, 5-year plans on our big capital planning expenditures. So Jamie Toll's doing a great job with that board, with that little committee.
Okay. Any comments on MRPC or capital planning committee? Any questions? Okay. School building committee. There's a meeting tomorrow of the school building committee. And there was a topping off ceremony, I think.
That was cute with the flag.
Yeah.
That was really cute.
Yeah, they had the school, everyone in the school in attendance. I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah,
if anyone
it is.
missed that.
And on Facebook.
So very nice to sort of celebrate the progress that was made and the completion of the steel for the building. Folks can see that as they drive by.
And again, I want to rave to the school. I think they do a great job educating the community and what's going on there with the Facebook, with the YouTube. They're really broadcasting and sharing with the community what's going on so everybody can be informed. And I just want to hand it to the committee. They're doing a great job.
Thanks. Okay. So I'm assuming, I'm planning to attend tomorrow. I'm assuming.
Well,
that
you're a
will be
planning board member until the 16th, so.
until the 16th. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, gotcha. All right, great. So I will let them know you guys will be sending a replacement sometime after that. I'm going to plan to stop attending after that. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you're no longer, because it's a planning board seat, so.
I understand. I just
And
wanted to make
yes,
sure.
yes.
I don't want you guys to be expecting, whatever. They do need that seat filled to have a. They do need a certain number of people there to have a quorum.
Okay.
To vote on things like tomorrow. they're
So you
voting
three
on-
start deciding how you're going to parse up these
Well, I'm sure there's a plan for write-ins, so don't you worry. You have your full board.
So it's
I'm sure there's a plan out there going on who's going to write who in.
You running a writing campaign?
I am not, no. No.
So yeah, just to be aware that they vote on budget issues, payments to the contractors. So it's not exceptionally exciting, but it probably is exceptionally important. They do have some interesting stuff too. That's not interesting, but okay. MJTC,
You skipped me.
Mr. Chenis.
You skipped open,
Oh, geez, I'm
open
sorry.
space and building reuse.
Open space. I have not met with the Open Space Committee or heard anything. Do you have any report from Open Space?
I do not. I'll check in with Brandon.
They
Okay.
usually don't meet, I don't think, unless there's the big,
Something big going on.
parcel that the Board of Selectmen or someone has asked us to look at.
Damon, that was not a snub. I apologize for that. Skip myself too. Building Reuse Committee.
We met in a joint meeting with the school committee.
Yeah, how'd that go?
It was just a preliminary meeting to talk about the goals of both groups. Before we meet, I think we would like to get everyone involved as far as the Board of Selectmen, and I'm sure the planning board might have some input going down the road to talk about the property line between. Yeah. Oh, well, this was the first conversation we really sat down and had together as far as the property line. I had done a couple just sketches previously to look at potential usage of those sites, or that site. And they had their current site engineer just do a quick sketch of, right now, they have spaces in their plan right next to the Passios building, that if we were to part it out, just based off of current zoning and where the offset from the building should be as far as the setback, it would impede upon that parking that they have there, and would need to be relocated somewhere else in part of the plan to keep up with the submission that they had out to MSBA. I think they would still need to get approval from MSBA because it moved at all, even though the numbers are still there.
Does that, the zoning prior to town meeting or per the village?
Prior to.
Okay.
But it was against the building, so.
They're actually, okay.
Yeah, so either way, they need to be moved
Yeah.
if if it's actually going to be broken off as a different parcel.
They're within 10 feet.
They're within probably 6 inches of the building.
The building is the curb stop?
Yeah. So if it's the intent to break it off as a separate parcel, those parking spaces need to move somewhere. And their site engineer did a quick sketch of showing them kind of more towards where the entrance of the new school will be. So I think doesn't have a large impact on the plan that they have right now as far as impervious surface or any of the stormwater drainage calcs they've done. But that was, so they had a contingency plan, I guess, as far as if those parking spaces had to move. Again, they were concerned that they still had to resubmit. Whatever we decide to do, they have to resubmit to MSBA. So they want to make sure they only have to do that once. But we had a good discussion, and we look forward to furthering that discussion with the other various town boards. Someone floated the idea of, should the school keep the Pastios building, and even though they promised to give it up and back to the town, there were suggestions that they keep that building, pay the money to tear it down with the contingency left, if there's leftover contingency from the school building project.
Well, there's 5 million right now, right, in a bucket?
Yeah, it's still early. That tends to disappear the further you get along in the project. But that was floated by a member of the public as well as, I think, someone on the board. But I kind of threw in that from a planning board perspective, I would like to see that property be developed to participate in what we kind of visioned up in the village zoning, and have that be a participatory site. But certainly, I'm sure will come up in discussion that people may want to see that retained as a part of the school property or part of the town property moving forward. There's definitely costs associated with that as far as, I mean, contingency money is still the town's money. They're still spending it. It's not like it came out of nowhere. So it is, while it's already been allocated, it's still spending money to tear it down. And I think there's definitely a lost opportunity cost to just leave that as a field between now and whenever we need to build something else. But that's pretty much the recap.
Thanks for that really thorough update. Any questions or comments for Damon?
A comment, I guess, is that was a tough sell to the town, and giving the TCP up from the school was a big part of that sale to the town. And for them to have gotten everything they asked for and then to take back something they offered.
Well, it wasn't really the school committee saying they wanted to take it back. They just said maybe there's room in the contingency where we could
I
do
understand.
it. It was more member of the public
I understand.
coming
Yeah.
in and pushing
I
it.
just wanted that to be clear. And also, if it's taken by the school committee, it's not going to be potentially profitable by the town as an RFP or some other business going in, and it's not going to be off the books. You know, the town's still going to pay for it. It'll just funnel through a different group. Thank you, Damon.
Yep, thanks.
Pave Paradise and put up a parking lot.
That's going to cost more.
Any other questions or comments for Damon? All right, Ken, what's up with the MJTC?
I'll have it. My report's a little bit longer than Damon's. Next meeting is May 20th. That's it. Sorry it took so long.
You had me quaking there for a minute. All right, Matt, how news from AgCom?
There has not been a meeting since. However, there was an article on the warrant that got dissolved because of lack of quorum for town meeting that had to do with the farmers market revision of the bylaw. It has since been clarified. My understanding is that since it's been approved and supported by the Board of Selectmen, that the transition from the managing of the market is still going to go forward to being managed by the AgCom. And they are still looking for a market manager. And their next meeting is going to be May 21st, Thursday night, 7 o'clock at the Ritter.
Okay, thanks for the update. Any questions or comments for Matt? All right. Well, let's move on to new business and development status reports. We have the annual town meeting.
So, those of you who were lucky enough to be there, got to sit through our 3 to 3.5 hours of presentations and discussion on the board's items, all of which passed. Yay.
Congratulations.
The Historical Commission did all the heavy lifting on the APD, but it did go through with maybe 1 or 2 minor amendments. And then the Village District passed with all the amendments that we discussed and the one amendment proposed by the public to allow for freestanding signs anywhere within the Village District through a special permit by the Zoning Board of Appeals, who's listed as the special permit granting authority in the bylaw. So that will happen. All of the housekeeping articles passed. Scenic roads are going along. Whitetail Crossing is now a town road, and now we can tackle all the fun zoning issues that we can come up with for next year and the year after and the year after.
So what's your recommendation moving forward, Adam? Or should we make a list of hot topic things that we want to address in the next year? Or how do you want to approach the next?
Signs and parking spaces, I just want to put them out there.
Yeah, I think that something like parking is, cleaning up the parking is relatively easy to do. Signs is going to take a year in and of itself. There was a lot of discussion about uses in districts and how those are meted out and then how those districts are allocated. I think, honestly, the uses portion is more important than something like signs, because the sign bylaw is an absolute bear. I don't know if Stephen Hawking could figure out some of the formulas that are in there, but it's working, kind of.
Business owners are saying it's not. Our tax-paying, commercial-based business owners are saying it's not.
And I would agree that it's not, but I think on the level of what's more important, the signs, which you can always, if you don't like, go to the zoning board and get a dimensional variation because all the signs in there are dimensions, or something like clearing up what uses, what they are, where they are, how they kind of get laid out. I think that has much more impact on economic development than the signs. So I would look at the districts, the uses, how the uses are divided amongst the districts, and then put a use table in place, because right now you've got to, if I want to do, whatever use, you've got to dig through all the verbiage to figure out where you can do it, as opposed to, boom, here's my use table. All right, I can see all the districts, I can see the use. It just makes a user-friendly bylaw, and I think that that's really the place to start, and then start moving into some of the detail stuff, signs, parking allocation, that kind of stuff. The parking layout stuff is something that's fairly standard, except for, maybe it is only Lunenburg, but the formula that we have here is just kind of wacky. And it's relatively simple to say parking space is these dimensions, small car is this dimensions, your aisles are this. And that's, it's kind of an engineering standard. It's not you can get specific about it, but that shouldn't be too difficult. And then we'll kind of move on from that. That would be my recommendation.
And just to let you know, Concord, Mass. has a phenomenal breakdown of their districts, and they actually, in the business district, they list the street address, so you can go your physical address and find out exactly what, it's a very detailed, specific, and it's not a 100-page document. It's a very good bylaw, if you might want to take a chance and look at that. And they had a great on the agricultural. the penalty. We were talking, okay, so if they don't do this, how do we penalize them? They had a great penalty payment thing in the Concord one as well. I had it all printed out for the last meeting, but I wasn't able to attend. So, anyhow, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Comments on the back.
I think moving forward with the zoning would have the biggest benefit to the town, cleaning that up, making it understandable for business owners and citizens.
And, and then we can start looking at the map and how you want to push that out. And, I think development plan review could use some tweaking, both in the bylaw and in the regulations.
Is there any public comment on the topics? Please come forward.
It's at the end, look. This is his report.
Hi, Paula Bertram, 312 Townsend Harbor Road. I just want a clarification on the bylaws that were passed at town meeting. I thought there were two amendments. There was the amendment to the signs and then the decrease in the glazing.
Oh, you're correct.
Okay.
That was
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Did anybody tell our local senator town barber that he can put a barber pole up yet?
Well, he can't yet. Because there's a January 1, 2016 implementation clause. But he can order it now, and he can look at it in his lobby until he's ready to put it up.
Poor Joe.
Anything else on town meeting? So I just got one comment. Yeah, on the village center thing. So, did you just say you wanted to work on signage this year? What did you guys? Or you were going to use? Was it use table? You guys just talked about working on, or was it?
Well, we just kind of outlined zoning and signage and parking and.
Yeah, I think we talked about a lot of things. I would say, of the three things we talked about, signage is kind of
Lower importance.
3 on priority. Gotcha. As far as impact goes. I know that it probably affects the most people on a day-to-day, but putting together a sign bylaw and putting together uses isn't simple either, but sign bylaws are the most divisive thing I've ever worked on.
Gotcha. No, that's fine. And, I was just curious. So yeah, just the current state of where we're at. The village district bylaw we put together, I thought came out really good overall. Some good things. On the signs piece, just where we're at with the changes, it's probably okay because the freestanding is a special permit and essentially it's going to the ZBA anyways, so anything we've done dimensionally or whatever would be subject to their review. And I think there was language in there about by intent. I guess, I think they're going to have to look, and this is probably fine, but just so we're all on the same page, they have to look to the village center for what to do with signs, because I don't think there's any real discussion of, the sign bylaw we have includes treatment of signs across all districts with, as Adam says, it is pretty complex. It has a section, this applies to all districts, and these apply to these districts, these 2 or 3 districts, and these apply to these 2 or 3, and then they might even have some specific things about, and then in this, there's like 3 levels. It's like, this applies to everybody. This applies to these few, and these apply to these few, and then they have some things that are sort of specific by district as well, I think. Village Center District is not represented, I don't believe, in any of that, because there's a fairly extensive treatment of signage in the Village Center bylaw. But for example, all the other districts have treatment of freestanding signage, including residents A and B, do actually allow freestanding signs. So we can probably, like Adam said, this is probably not super important. We can probably survive like this. But as you guys decide, where you want, what kind of format you want to deal with these things in, how much stuff you want to put in the bylaw descriptions for the specific districts, how much you want to centralize, like the sign bylaw is currently centralized. Right now, there's definitely some mismatch, I guess. I kind of like the way the village center model works in a lot of ways, in that, you can go there and read everything about the district, but like you're just talking about with the use table, there's clearly value in the centralized stuff. So long story short, there's a little bit of disharmony right now with the freestanding sign stuff. Not earth-shattering, it's under special permit, they have a lot of discretion anyways, but something to think about. The other thing, there was something brought up about it might be worth reviewing a couple other provisions in the sign bylaw, such as the thing that was brought up at town meeting but not acted on, which is, I think it's fine that it wasn't acted on at town meeting, but I wouldn't maybe just drop it, was the thing about the equal size signs. It says each business in a multi-use building, each individual.
That was specific to the VCD, though.
That is specific to the VCD, exactly. But the question is, you know, is that how fully thought through is that? Are we, you know, when the topic, anyways, for me, when it came up, I mean, I think we did a lot of great things there, but there's areas where, you know, we didn't get a lot of public input on the sign bylaw when we were in public hearing for the VCD. I think had we received that input during the public hearing section, we might have taken the opportunity to tweak some aspects of it. And so, you know, just something to think about. Last thing about VCD, we had talked, so I'm really excited it passed. We had talked, there were a bunch of things we wanted to do with the VCD. One was the APD, one was the VCD itself. Another thing we talked about doing was a sidewalk plan. But we talked about doing that after
A
it
sidewalk
passed.
fund?
Sidewalk plan.
Oh.
You know, the issue, the issue about sidewalk plan was, you know, it's intended to be a walkable district and whatnot. Sidewalk, there's a level of town coordination and planning that goes in maintenance that goes into a sidewalk. My personal feeling is that there's opportunities now that we have the village center district to, you know, engage whatever the appropriate technical expertise is and engage the public and think about, I think there are opportunities there to improve the walkability of the district beyond what it is already. There's some really low hanging fruit, like just maybe connecting like the corner of Mass Ave in the existing sidewalk on Main Street. I'm just using that as an example. There's probably some other things where the sidewalk's on one side, not the other, or, you know, kind of goes along one side, then you have to cross the street to pick it up on another. So,
And I think that, you know, probably even more important than calling it a sidewalk plan is it's got to be multimodal transportation, because with the introduction of expanded MART service, there was some discussion, you know, about, and I'm not wholly familiar with what the route is, but if it comes through downtown or through the village district, then that needs to be incorporated. What about bicycles? What about, you know, if we're going to do this, I think it needs to be more ubiquitous and cover everything that we can get, because honestly, car traffic it's not a problem there, but if you're looking to get people to patronize businesses, then, you know, there needs to be a plan for all of that stuff. So I think that, you know, I think it's more than just sidewalks, and it's more than just the planning board. And I think the planning board can start the conversation, but I think there's a lot of people who need to be involved, and I think that there might be some opportunities.
yeah, I think that's great. I think the issue is, I think that's really well put, and I think that scope is great. I think my concern would be if the planning board doesn't sort of take the initiative to stimulate the appropriate stakeholders, it may not happen kind of thing. So, okay, so thanks. That's all I had about that. All right, definitive subdivision, 50 Elmwood bond review. I think
we've done that.
Covered that. Highfield Village, see above. We talked about that.
That's done.
1249 Mass Ave, no report. Tri-Town, no report. Emerald, no report. Action file. Master planning, economic development element, no report. It's just a...
Yeah, I think that's something that we can start to pick up now after we've gotten through. I think the village was more cumbersome than I imagined it was going to be, and I think that we have time now to focus on that element, and we can really stoke the fire on it.
Good. That sounds great. Yeah, if you do decide to redo the use table and whatnot, that probably is going to dovetail with...
Very well.
Okay, housing production plan. I know there's no report. Does that mean it's still in the state's
It is.
court? Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, notices and communications. The Conservation Committee has a scanned agenda, which I think was distributed. Any questions on that? Comments? Okay, meeting schedule. All board meetings are held at Town Hall 6:30 PM unless otherwise indicated. May 25th, we have no meeting because of the Memorial Day holiday. June 8th, we have a meeting. I use the term "we" there loosely. And June 22nd, we also have a meeting.
The royal we.
Exactly. Any public comment at this point? All right, seeing none. Any board comments, concerns?
I have. With Marion Benson in the conference room over at the Ritter Building, we had met, there was a couple of us when we were talking about Marion's dedication at the town meeting, and it was recommended that we ask the Board of Selectmen if we can dedicate the meeting room that is in the front of Adam's office and call it the Marion Benson or the, Benson, whatever the name would be, to be dedicated to Marion. So that Thursday, I emailed Kerry, and Kerry said she'd send it out to the selectmen. There really isn't a process. There is no board process in naming of rooms. So she said she would check with the selectmen. She then got back to me and said that the selectmen didn't seem to have an issue with it. So Mike Nault at D&G Graphics had made the sign. And then Kerry had touched base with me and said she did hear from another selectman and thought maybe it should be voted on at a Tuesday meeting. And I said, okay, well, what do we do with the public at the annual meeting that we're gonna dedicate to Marion the room? So she said, we'll just say that the selectmen and the planning board, they're working on it, and we'll dedicate the room. So then I talked with Kerry, and Kerry said, just have Marjorie send a letter on letterhead requesting that we do the room. So I did that, and then Adam felt I was speaking for the board, this board, which was never my intent to speak for this board. I was just doing what Kerry had recommended we do, is to put it in writing. So, and then Adam said it really should go on the agenda, so that's where it is. It's on the agenda to get your approval to write a letter to the Board of Selectmen, just requesting that the conference room, and be named after Marion. And the biggest part is that Marion was the first planning director in the town of Lunenburg. She started as the planning director in 1983, started getting paid to be the planning director in, I think, 2007. I don't want to misquote. I think it was 2007. So I would make a motion that we send a letter to the Board of Selectmen requesting that they name the conference room. I can't recall what the sign, Kerry's got the sign, what it actually says. I think it's the Marion Benson Meeting Room is what my request would be, is that we send that letter.
Did we verify the sign's in compliance with the sign bylaw? No, just kidding.
Interior signs are exempt?
What district we want to put it in.
I'd second the motion.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, any discussion?
I would add that from 83 to 2004, she was simply an elected board member, and also assuming that position.
I have no comment.
All right, all in favor?
No.
Aye.
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 I will send that letter off tomorrow.
Thank you so much. And I did send you kind of just a blurb.
Yeah.
If you want to
Sure.
All right, any,
submit that, it's all yours.
thank you very much, Joanna, and thanks for putting that together at a town meeting. That was really a great tribute.
It was. Her family, I think it was great for her family to see how we appreciate her.
Yeah, it was great to see Marion again. All right, any other board comments or concerns?
Just, Joanna, Nathan, I think this is your last meeting,
It is.
so I wanted to thank you for your service to the board and the community. We're gonna miss you, and it was a pleasure working with you both.
Same with you.
Hey, likewise.
Thank you for your service.
I'd echo the same thoughts. It's been a great couple of years.
I'm so excited for you. starting your family. I feel like baby's growing up.
Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Nathan, it's just been a welcome with you.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. There you go. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. With that, we'll motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay. No, I'm just kidding. Aye.